They say once you've danced with spirits, you'll never truly be alone again. That's exactly what happened to Bayo, a farmer who stumbled upon something no one should see. Bayo had heard tales of a village where the dead didn't rest. Some said that at night, they rose to join the living, drawn by the full moon's pull. Most people scoffed at these stories, but Bayo's curiosity got the best of him. The mystery of the village gnawed at him until he couldn't ignore it anymore. One night, just as the moon's light bathed the fields in silver, Bayo set off. He wanted to see if there was any truth to the rumors. What he found was beyond anything he'd ever imagined. As soon as he reached the village square, he felt an unsettling chill in the air. People were gathering under the full moon's glow, their eyes empty, faces blank. And then, without warning, it began. Bayo felt a strange pull, a force, unseen and unbreakable, tugging at him. His feet moved on their own, as if invisible hands were guiding him. The villagers swayed, spun, and danced in eerie harmony. Bayo couldn't stop himself. He was one with them, his body moving to a silent rhythm, controlled by forces beyond him. As he danced, he felt whispers brush past his ears, voices of the dead blending with the music. His heart pounded, but his feet kept moving. Little did he know, leaving this village wouldn't be as easy as arriving. The morning after the dance, Bayo felt strange, as if something had followed him back from the night. He shook it off as exhaustion, but deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple. The villagers warned him as he prepared to leave. "You've danced with spirits now, Bayo," one of the elders whispered. "Once you join them, they don't let you go." At first, Bayo laughed it off. "Just an old tale," he muttered to himself, trying to ignore the way the elders' words clung to him like a shadow. He waved goodbye to the villagers and began the long walk back to his farm, eager to put the strange night behind him. But as he walked, Bayo started hearing faint whispers. He paused, looking around. The road was empty, but the whispers grew louder, surrounding him. He began to feel as if someone was watching him, following his every step. Then, a flicker of light caught his eye. It was there, just for a moment, a glimmer in the corner of his vision. He stopped, his heart racing. When he looked closer, the light was gone, swallowed by the shadows. Bayo quickened his pace, feeling unease settle in his bones. The whispers followed him, growing louder, filling his ears with words he couldn't understand. It was as if the spirits from the village hadn't let go of him, clinging to him with every step he took. And then, Bayo realized with a cold dread, he had taken a piece of the spirit world with him. Back at his farm, Bayo hoped he could shake off the strange events of the night. He threw himself into work, hoping the routine would bring him back to normal. But each night, as dusk settled, he felt the presence again. Flickering lights appeared in the dark corners of his house, vanishing when he tried to get closer. Shadows moved, even when nothing was there. One evening, as he was settling down for dinner, he heard footsteps echoing in his empty hallway. They were soft, barely a whisper against the silence, but unmistakable. Heart pounding, Bayo rushed to check. The hallway was empty. No one was there. But then, as he turned to leave, a faint voice whispered his name. "Bayo." He froze, his skin prickling with fear. He'd heard it clearly, like someone was standing right behind him. He turned slowly, but no one was there. Just the empty hallway stretching before him, filled with shadows and silence. Bayo backed away, his pulse racing. No matter how much he tried to dismiss it, he knew the truth, the spirits hadn't let him go. He had brought them home with him, and they weren't leaving. Bayo tried to live as he had before, but the strange happenings refused to stop. Every night, his home filled with eerie sounds, the quiet shuffle of footsteps, the whisper of voices, and those faint, flickering lights. One evening, as he lay in bed, he felt a strange heaviness in the air. His room grew cold, and a chill ran down his spine. Slowly, he turned his head, heart thumping, to see a shadowy figure standing at the foot of his bed. It was only there for a second, fading away into darkness, but Bayo knew what he'd seen. These weren't ordinary shadows, they were the spirits, coming to remind him of the night he had danced with them. He tried to speak, but no words would come. Frozen with fear, he watched the spot where the shadow had stood, waiting for something, anything, to happen. The rest of the night passed in restless silence. Every time Bayo closed his eyes, he felt as if someone was watching him, waiting for him to drift off so they could pull him back into the spirit world. By morning, he was exhausted and jumpy, his mind buzzing with questions. What did the spirits want? And why hadn't anyone warned him about this before he danced with them? Desperate for answers, Bayo decided to return to the village and find the elder who had warned him about the curse. If anyone knew how to break it, it would be her. The journey back was tense, every sound around him making him jump. He could feel the spirits following him, their whispers growing louder the closer he got to the village. He hurried, hoping the elder could help him find peace. When he arrived, he saw the elder sitting outside her hut, as if she had been waiting for him. "Bayo," she said, her voice soft but serious, "you should not have returned." Bayo knelt before her, his voice shaking. "Elder, please. I've been haunted since I left. The spirits won't leave me alone. Is there a way to make them stop?" The elder looked at him sadly. "Once you dance with the spirits, you become one of them in a way. They see you as theirs now. To be free, you must give something back, something precious." Bayo's heart sank. "What must I give?" The elder didn't answer right away, her gaze distant. "Sometimes, the spirits want a piece of the life you took from them. Or, they may ask you to dance again, to finish what you started." Bayo's skin prickled. He had no idea what this meant, but he knew he wasn't safe yet. The elder's words weighed heavily on Bayo's mind as he left her hut. "Finish what you started," she'd said, but what did that mean? As he walked away, Bayo felt a familiar presence nearby. Flickering lights appeared in the corners of his vision, and whispers echoed around him. The spirits were waiting, watching, urging him to make a choice. Days passed in restless worry. The whispers grew louder, and the shadows more frequent. He barely slept, and every corner of his farm seemed to carry an unseen presence. Bayo knew he had to make a choice, and soon. One evening, as he sat on his porch, staring at the darkening sky, he made up his mind. He would go back to the village during the next full moon. If the spirits wanted him to dance again, he would. If that was what it took to break the curse, then so be it. The spirits had made his life a living nightmare. He could no longer walk, eat, or sleep without feeling their cold presence around him. Bayo was determined, this had to end, one way or another. When the night of the full moon arrived, Bayo felt both dread and determination. He made the journey back to the village, where the people were already gathering in the square, just as they had the first night he danced. The villagers stood in silence, their eyes dull, almost lifeless. Bayo felt a strange pull as he stepped into the circle, the same force that had controlled his movements last time. As the drums began to beat, he felt his body begin to sway. His feet moved on their own, his arms lifted, and once again, he was dancing, not by his will, but by the spirit's command. The whispers returned, filling his mind. It was as if the spirits were speaking to him, trying to tell him something, but their words were jumbled, like pieces of a forgotten song. He closed his eyes, letting the spirits guide him. As he danced, he felt their presence grow stronger, their touch colder, their whispers louder. This time, the dance felt endless, like a dream he couldn't escape from. When he finally opened his eyes, the square was empty, and he was alone. The villagers had left, but he knew the spirits were still with him. After that night, things only got worse. The spirits didn't leave him, they became bolder, showing themselves more often, their shadows lingering longer, their whispers clearer. Bayo began to see shadowy figures walking around his farm at night. They didn't try to hide anymore. He would catch glimpses of them out of the corner of his eye, only for them to disappear when he looked directly at them. One night, he decided to confront them. Grabbing a lantern, he stepped outside, calling into the darkness, "What do you want from me?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, a cold wind blew past him, carrying a whisper that sent chills down his spine. "Dance with us, Bayo. Finish the dance." Bayo's lantern flickered, casting eerie shadows on the ground. He looked around, but there was nothing but darkness and silence. He knew what he had to do, but he dreaded it. If he returned to the village for another dance, would he be able to come back? Or would the spirits keep him with them forever? He was trapped between fear and desperation, haunted by forces he couldn't see and a curse he couldn't escape. Days turned into weeks, and Bayo's condition only worsened. The whispers now followed him everywhere, even in daylight. He'd hear them while he walked, calling his name, asking him to dance again. At night, his sleep was filled with terrible dreams. He'd see himself in the village square, surrounded by shadowy figures, dancing endlessly under the full moon. He'd wake up sweating, his heart racing, the whispers echoing in his mind. The villagers he had once danced with began to visit his dreams too, their faces pale and empty, their eyes hollow. Each time, they would reach out to him, pulling him back into their endless, haunting dance. Bayo was losing himself, his mind unraveling under the spirit's relentless hold. He didn't know how much longer he could endure it. Every part of his life was touched by the curse, and he felt as if he were fading, becoming more like the spirits with each passing day. In his desperation, he decided to seek help once more. If dancing with the spirits hadn't freed him, maybe there was another way. He remembered the elders' words, "Give something precious." Bayo would do whatever it took to break free. He was willing to face his fears, even if it meant returning to the spirit world one last time. Bayo spent sleepless nights pondering what something precious could mean. He thought about his farm, his tools, even the clothes on his back. But he doubted the spirits wanted something so ordinary. The curse was far too powerful for a simple gift to lift it. One night, while sitting alone by his fire, an idea struck him. What if the spirits wanted a part of his own soul, a piece of his very life? The thought sent chills through him, but he was willing to try anything. The next day, he returned to the elder, hoping she could guide him. Her eyes were sorrowful as she listened to his plan. "Bayo," she began, "if you offer a part of yourself, it may calm the spirits. But beware, once you give something that personal, you can never take it back." Bayo nodded solemnly. "I'll do whatever it takes." With the elder's help, he prepared a small ritual. He would offer a part of his spirit under the full moon, hoping the spirits would be satisfied and finally let him go. That night, he stood alone in the village square, feeling the eerie stillness of the air around him. As he began to speak his offering, he felt a presence around him, cold and heavy. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spoke the words from his heart. "I give you a part of my spirit. Let this be my final dance with you." For a moment, there was silence. Then, a rush of cold wind swept over him, and he heard the whispers recede into the distance. The spirits had accepted his offering, at least for now. In the days that followed, Bayo felt an unfamiliar calm settle over his life. The spirits' whispers had faded, the shadowy figures had disappeared, and for the first time in months, he could finally sleep in peace. At first, Bayo hardly dared to believe it was over. He tiptoed through his days, afraid that any sudden movement might shatter this fragile calm. Yet, night after night, the peace held. The villagers noticed his change too. "You look lighter, Bayo," one of his neighbors remarked. Like a weight has been lifted from you. Bayo nodded, grateful but cautious. Though the spirit seemed to have left him alone, he felt an odd emptiness inside him, a strange hollowness he couldn't quite understand. It was as if a piece of him had truly been given away, leaving a small, dark space in its place. But even with that strange emptiness, he was grateful for his freedom. He went back to his farm, toiling from dawn till dusk, eager to rebuild his life and put the horrors of the curse behind him. For the first time in a long time, Bayo dared to hope that he could be free. Just when Bayo was beginning to feel normal again, the peace shattered. One evening, as he was preparing to lock up his farm, he saw a flickering light out of the corner of his eye. His heart sank. He tried to ignore it, chalking it up to a trick of the light, but the flickering persisted. Then came the whispers, faint at first but growing louder with each passing minute. They were calling his name again, just as they had before. Panic gripped him as he rushed inside, bolting the door behind him. He'd given the spirits a piece of himself. Why were they returning? That night, he lay awake in fear, listening to the whispers outside his window. They grew louder, circling his house, taunting him with their haunting calls. Bayo realized with a cold dread that his offering hadn't been enough. The spirits had only been appeased for a short while. Now, they were back, and they wanted more. Desperate and terrified, Bayo returned to the elder the very next morning. He told her of the return of the whispers, the flickering lights, and the overwhelming sense that the spirits wanted more from him. The elder's face grew grave as she listened. Bayo, I feared this might happen. Sometimes, once you invite the spirits into your life, they are not satisfied until they have all of you. All of me. Bayo repeated, his voice barely a whisper. The thought was too terrible to comprehend. The elder nodded. There may be one final way to break the curse. But it's dangerous, and there are no guarantees. What is it? Bayo asked, feeling a surge of desperation. He was willing to try anything at this point. You must go to the place where the spirits dwell, beyond the veil of the living and the dead, the elder said quietly. There, you may be able to confront them and make them release you. But be warned, if you fail, you may never return. Bayo's heart pounded. It was a risk, but he knew he couldn't live like this. He took a deep breath and made his decision. I'll go, he said. The elder led Bayo to a hidden grove deep within the forest, a place where the boundary between the living and the spirit world was said to be thin. She instructed him to wait there until nightfall, when the spirits would be strongest. As the sun set, Bayo felt a chill settle over the grove. Shadows lengthened, and the air grew thick with an eerie silence. He waited, heart pounding, as darkness descended around him. Then, just as the moon rose, he felt it, a sudden shift, like a door opening to another world. Cold tendrils of mist rose from the ground, swirling around him, carrying faint whispers on the wind. Bayo took a deep breath and stepped forward, crossing the boundary between the living and the dead. The world around him shifted. Shadows deepened, and the trees took on twisted, eerie forms. He could see ghostly figures moving through the mist, their eyes hollow, their movements slow and haunting. Bayo was terrified, but he knew he couldn't turn back now. He pressed on, hoping to find the spirits who had cursed him and plead for his freedom. In the heart of the spirit realm, Bayo finally found himself surrounded by the figures who had haunted him for so long. Their faces were pale, their eyes empty, and they moved in eerie unison, as if controlled by a single, unseen force. Bayo's courage wavered, but he forced himself to speak. "Why won't you leave me alone?" he demanded, his voice trembling. "I've given you part of myself, what more do you want?" The spirit's whispers rose, swirling around him in a confusing tangle of voices. It was difficult to make out their words, but one message came through loud and clear. "Finish the dance, Bayo." Bayo felt a familiar pull in his limbs, a compulsion to dance. He realized that the only way to be free was to complete the dance he had started on that fateful night. Taking a deep breath, he allowed the spirits to guide his movements. As he danced, he felt his body growing lighter, his mind clearer. He moved with the spirits, joining them in their mournful, graceful dance under the silver light of the moon. The spirits' voices grew softer, fading into a gentle hum. With each step, Bayo felt a part of his fear lift, replaced by a strange sense of peace. He was letting go, surrendering to the rhythm of the dance, trusting the spirits to guide him to freedom. As the dance ended, Bayo felt a deep calm settle over him. The spirits slowly faded, their shadows lifting from him like a weight he had carried for far too long. He found himself back in the grove, the dawn breaking softly through the trees. The chill was gone, and for the first time in months, he felt truly alone, not haunted, but free. The elder was waiting for him at the edge of the grove. She saw the change in his face and nodded. "The spirits have accepted your dance," she said quietly. "You are free now, Bayo." Bayo didn't have the words to express his gratitude. He simply nodded, feeling a lightness he hadn't felt in a long time. As he walked back to his farm, he realized he had given the spirits what they truly wanted, not a part of his soul, but a moment of understanding, of joining them in their timeless world for just a little while. Bayo walked back to his farm with a newfound peace in his heart. For the first time, the world around him felt alive, filled with warmth and light rather than shadows and whispers. He could hear birds singing, feel the soft breeze on his skin, and smell the earth beneath his feet. The haunting chill that had once followed him was gone. Bayo felt as though he had been reborn, carrying only a memory of the spirit's realm rather than the curse he'd once feared. His farm was just as he'd left it, but it now seemed brighter and more welcoming. The trees around him, once looming and dark, now looked lush and full of life. As the days passed, Bayo settled back into his routine. He tilled his land, sowed seeds, and watched them grow. The whispers no longer followed him, and his dreams were calm and restful. He knew he was truly free. One evening, Bayo's neighbors gathered around him at the edge of his farm, curious about the changes they had noticed in him. They had seen the shadows he'd once carried and were now eager to hear what had lifted them. "Bayo, you look different. Happier," one neighbor observed. "It's as if you've left behind something heavy." Bayo smiled, nodding thoughtfully. He knew he couldn't tell them everything he'd experienced, some things were too strange to be shared. But he did want them to understand the power of the choices he had made. "There are things in this world that go beyond what we see," he began carefully. "Sometimes, they ask us to make sacrifices, to understand them even when they seem frightening." The villagers listened intently as he spoke of the spirit's dance, the curse he'd faced, and the journey he had taken to free himself. Though he kept the details simple, the message was clear. "It's important to respect the unknown," he finished, "but it's also important to remember that we have the power to face our fears, no matter how big they seem." As the years went by, Bayo's story spread throughout the village, and people began to speak of the night the spirits had danced with the living man. Children gathered eagerly around their elders to hear of Bayo's courage and his journey to confront the spirit world. Parents warned their children about venturing too far into the unknown, but they also reminded them of Bayo's bravery. "If you ever find yourself afraid, remember Bayo," they'd say. "He showed us that we can face our fears with respect and courage." Bayo felt a deep satisfaction in knowing his story had become a lesson for the village. He was no longer haunted, and he felt proud to have given the village a story that would be told for generations. As time went on, he even found himself growing fond of the memory of the spirits. Though their realm was not one he wished to visit again, he had come to understand their nature and felt at peace with the part he'd played. One evening, as the sun set and the villagers gathered around Bayo one last time, he decided to share a final thought, one that had taken him years to understand. "The spirits taught me something important," he said. "Fear is powerful, but so is respect. We don't have to control everything or know every mystery. Sometimes, it's enough to approach things with understanding and a humble heart. The spirits weren't my enemies, they just wanted to be remembered, respected, and understood." The villagers nodded, understanding the deeper meaning of his words. They saw that Bayo's journey wasn't just about freeing himself from a curse, it was about learning to live in harmony with the world around him, both seen and unseen. From that day on, the villagers treated the unknown with respect, keeping in mind the balance between fear and understanding. And every full moon, they would look to the sky, remembering the spirits who had once danced among them and the humble farmer who had dared to join them. If you love this story and I would love to see more of this, please give us a like and subscribe to this channel to enjoy more captivating African folktales.